So we are reading Robert Monroe's Far Journeys. We are on chapter 14, page number 160, 186 of the book and 99 of the PDF.
I had the percept that BB was focused as one would be fascinated by a cobra weaving its hooded head directly in front of your face. I focused on him, trying to determine exactly what and how much of the scene was penetrating him as a real rote. How do you explain warm and cold, or such a simple thing as a cooking fire, or the constant attention and servicing a physical body requires to one who has never been in one? Then BB was pushing at me again.
So naturally, BB has never experienced a physical body. So he has no percept. That means he has no concept of what it requires to maintain a physical body. In what we read last time was that that person was actually killing an animal and then bleeding the animal and then wanting to eat the animal. Okay, so that was the scene that BB was experiencing for the first time. So naturally over here, he doesn't understand that why do you need to eat? Because in that expanded state where BB comes from, you really don't need to eat anything. You're just there. Okay. You're just energy.
Ram, he was vibrating strongly. He's killing the other one. I turned. The man had moved the woman back from the fire and pushed her to the ground. He was on top of her, his body holding her down, arms around her tightly, hers around him. A long, rough dress was thrown up over her hips, and they were writhing violently, her open legs locked around his waist. The two children were eating from the bowl, totally unconcerned, not being the voyeur type. I could be quite clinical. I smoothed. He's not killing her. They are reproducing. What's They're putting their two energies together to form a third. They're making copies of themselves, like the smaller two there eating by the fire. I'm sure they made those two. Why would they do that? It's the bigger part of the survival stuff. Make a copy of yourself and keep on living in your copy. It's basic in all living species, not just humans. The rote is that you reproduce first before you get around to eating, cold or warm, whatever.
So again, procreation is a survival instinct so that your DNA survives. So it is a built-in instinct into all living creatures actually.
But they already made two. That's a sort of guarantee that at least one will survive to make more copies. If those two young new ones die or get killed before they make copies, then the third they're making right now might live long enough to get copies made. BB flickered. Why would they die, or how would they get killed? That's one of the problems of physical life. It's easier to die or get killed than it is to live. The strong survival drive is needed to achieve balance. That produces other problems. What problems? We'll get to them along the way. He focused on the couple below, who by now had completed their sexual act and were back eating before the fire. The two big ones are not the same. Humans, but different. Run the rote when you caught up with AA. He wanted to go back and be a female. Then the next time around, he had been a female. Humans are either male or female. It takes a male and a female to reproduce to make a copy. BB turned inward, then opened. Which are you? Male. You ever been female? I don't have any rote on it, so I guess not. He opened more. Nothing like this in KT95. Never had a percept like it to make a copy of yourself. Fascinating. I cut in. Well, it's not exactly a copy of yourself. It's a physical mix of the two. And you hope it might be a copy of you, but it never really turns out that way. It's just a physical vehicle. The girl who enters it might be a total stranger.
So now over here, he is making a statement. It's a physical mix of the two, and you hope it might be a copy, but it never really turns out that way. So every time a couple is indulging in the sexual act and they are reproducing, there's a mix of the DNA of both of them, right? And then he makes a statement here: the girl who enters it may be a total stranger. So that means that essence, which actually makes the body alive, he's naming it curl over here, that intelligence, or you could call it the Atma in our terms, who enters it may not be connected to the two at all. Generally speaking, it is a person from your soul group who actually comes into that mix. But again, the idea here is that we all decide what we want. So we decide who our parents are going to be, and we have an option to enter into the baby when we want to, as an intelligence from there. So that is what Ed was doing, right? Ed in the previous chapters, Ed was asking him, "What do you want? What do you want to experience?" He was asking AA, "What do you want to experience?" And accordingly, I can slot you in. So again, whatever AA wanted to experience, based on that, he would get the parents that he wanted. So this is what the curl is meaning over here.
BB rolled. Don't get concerned, Ram. I'm not that fascinated. I get a percept that stranger girls than you have been caught into being human. He smoothed. At this point, I don't get any part of this survival stuff. That would be too much for me. The eating I can adjust to, the warm and cool. If they can do it, I can do it. The reproducing, copy making, that would be fun. Make a big game out of it.
So now what is it saying over here? He says, I get a percept that stronger curls than you have been caught into caught into being human. So naturally, it's a fascinating kind of an adventure. And then once you get caught into it, you want to repeat it. So like AA went into as a man, and then he wanted to experience being a female, and then he wanted to experience being a big warrior so that no one could dominate him, and so on and so forth. So he's got stuck in that route. Okay. So the same thing is happening over here. Now, BB says that it may be interesting.
I couldn't hold it back. Famous last words. Come on. He blanked. No percept on that one. Last words? I turned, went through the wall, sure that BB was following. I homed in on one place that I knew would give him a strong root on how distortion could accumulate. Ident, New York, center of Manhattan, start with West 42nd Street. The movement was quite short, and we came in at sidewalk level. The usual human composites were crowding one another, jostling, strolling, hurrying, and loitering. The eateries, the old movie houses, overplugging and underdone, X rated pornos on their marquees, the gimmick and guts shop, record stores blasting it out, the car and truck traffic filling the street. It hadn't really changed in 30 years, only more of the same. Yes, this would show it. BB was in the middle of the passing parade, unnecessarily ducking and trying to avoid bumping into people. I steered him over to the curb, out of the rush and crush. He flickered. Where did they all come from? Crossroads of the world, they used to call it. Come from everywhere, lot of them live nearby. Why do they come here, this place? I smoothed. The percept is you can find anything you want here in New York. BB vibrated. Still doesn't come out new to me, even down in it. It's just the ident, that's all. But they're doing the same thing as the man back there by the woods. Every one of them, trying to survive, doing anything to keep alive. BB flickered. I don't get the same percept, and the M band noise is shaking me up too much. The scratchy stuff in the band, it's the worst. Never got that before anyway. Where's it all coming from? I smoothed. Close a little. That'll make it easier. The noise is coming from us humans. The scratchy stuff that screeches so much, I finally figured out. It's their emotions. Emotions?
Okay. So now what is happening? There are a lot of people in New York, right? Now, when he was encountering that person in the forest, there was only those 2 or 4 people. So the M band noise, again, we discussed the M band noise that each and every one of us, we are constantly transmitting data and constantly receiving data. Although it is done at a level of not at the level of our conscious awareness. So naturally, when he's going into New York, there's a lot of emotional turmoil and a lot of mental transmission and reception going on. So naturally, he's going to feel the bolt or the jolt of that particular M band noise over there. It's really like static, which is there.
Emotions? I won't try to give you a percept on it. You have to be human to experience. It's the next biggest problem after the survival drive. Makes humans do things they really don't want to do. He flickered, half open. Why do they make all the noise? I plied. They don't know they're doing it.
So again, most of the time we really don't know that we are thinking because we are not doing it with conscious awareness. So as soon as you become consciously aware of your thoughts, you can attempt to start stilling your thoughts, right? And then he says, makes human do things that they really don't want to do. So our emotions and our thoughts make us do a lot of stuff that later on when we rationalize, we should not have been doing it. So naturally, it's a vicious cycle that we all of us have got into.
I plied. They don't know they're doing it. He turned inward, closed. Then he opened slightly. You're human. How come you don't make M-band noise like that? I do. I just have it under control for the moment. Back in the physical, I blow it all over the place, I'm sure. BB opened and smoothed. All right, if you can take it, so can I. Now, what about this survival stuff? I spun a slow 360. Within a short time distance from this spot, you can get all your survival needs taken care of and more. As much as you want, any kind you want, whenever you want, you ident it and you got it. BB flickered. All the food to eat, from the hamburger joint over there to the top of that tower over in the distance. Go in and they will supply you. The warm and the cool, the hut to stay in, the stuff you put on your body, all here. How about making copies? The yeah, reproducing. I rolled. I suppose you could get that too if you looked hard enough. Most of it here is doing the action without making any copies. BB blanked. Why would you want to do it if you're not making copies? I flickered. My percept has it that the survival imprint was so strong, it wanted to make sure each species took the trouble to reproduce. So the act of doing it was made to be fun. He blanked again. Fun? Those back there didn't act like they were having fun. I plied. You have to be human to get that percept. It can't be handed out in a rote either. Anyway, you can satisfy that part of the survival drive too, as much as you want. BB lighted brightly. Then what's all this mix up about? It's all under control. Humans get what they want, there's plenty of it. Each curl soaks it up and goes back from where he came from.
So,
I
so over here, the point is that you have to experience the experience to really understand. How much ever knowledge you may get about a subject, unless you really experience it, it is not possible to totally understand it. That's what Ram is telling BB over here.
turned inward and closed. This was turning into a hard lesson for me, not him. I was pretty sure it wouldn't work, and it wasn't. How do I convey to him the fact that all humans have to spend most of their waking hours working one way or another just to survive? That humans want the same thing and kill each other to get it? That they get so involved in surviving they don't know when to stop when they have enough? That humans form big clubs they call nations and try to destroy other nations who they think threaten their survival? That the whole thing occupies their thoughts and actions so deeply they forget completely any other existence but physical human.
So naturally, once immersed, once immersed in this earth life uh, system, you actually forget that expanded state of consciousness from which we have actually come here. So what we are originally, we totally forget that.
You're leaking again, Ram. Bibi cut in. You got it right. I wouldn't get a percept on any of it. What's this work stuff? You mean humans kill and eat each other? What do you mean they forget? I did the best I could. Work is what humans do to get money, energy to pay, give to other humans so those humans will give them what they want to satisfy their survival needs. Money, energy, huh? Must be pretty strong stuff. I have no ident on it. You wouldn't, only humans have it, and it's strictly physical. Won't work anywhere except on physical earth and with other humans. Worse than that, each group of humans, nations, the big clubs, we have game clubs in KT95. Yes, the big clubs of humans, each has its own type of money energy and they trade money. BB smooth. So I want a deer to eat or a hut to be in, a cover for my body to be in. I got to give money energy to get it. You work, you pay, and you get. He focused on the cars moving by. How about those covers? Can you get them for money energy too? That's all it takes. It's too messed up for me. BB smoothed completely. If I had to be human, I would stay away from all the rest of it and just hang around making copies and let it go at that. What's so funny? I was rolling hard and couldn't keep closed. He blanked. That takes money energy too? I plied. One way or another. Suddenly, I felt an urgent signal to return to the physical, loud and clear. I tried to resist it and work to get BB's attention. At the same time, I had to go back. But I couldn't leave him where he was. He wouldn't know how to get out. But the signal was too strong and I couldn't help myself. I began to move away slowly as I resisted, then accelerating quickly as I decided to go back and see what the problem was and return as fast as I could. I reached the second, slipped in fast, and pulled up into the physical. I sat up in the bed and looked around. Everything seemed normal, no full bladder, no tingle in an arm or leg from poor circulation, no aches or pains. Must have been external, phone ringing, jet aircraft overhead, whatever. It wasn't important. I immediately remembered BB and I had the thought of him standing bewildered on the curb. At 42nd and Broadway, I went through a quick relaxation to try to get down an OOB, but I was too keyed up. I couldn't hold it together. On about the sixth try, I fell asleep. When I awakened, it was morning. I thought of trying to get out and help BB, but it was the wrong time for me. I spent the day in my typical pattern with BB flashing in and out of my consciousness. This was a case where I was 100% responsible and I knew it. Finally, late in the afternoon, I felt tired enough to relax and went up to the lab, entered and locked the door. I set up some sound signals and went into the booth. I lay back on the waterbed, put on the headphones, and almost immediately started to relax. The rest was easy. I detached from the physical, rolled out of the second, started to reach, and stopped. There was a form directly in front of me.
So now what happened? BB had actually followed Ram and he was in the check unit with Ram, right? So he was seeing BB right in front of him as soon as he stepped out of his body.
Hey Ram, where are you going? I vibrated. How did you get here? BB was very smooth. When you started to pull that short skip, I just followed your ident. I wasn't going to stay in all that M-man noise if you didn't. Much better here. I should hope so. Your survival must be going strong. You got more than one hut. I flickered. This is not a hut, it's where we work. I got a solid percept of you coming out of the physical body there. That's yours? I vibrated. Certainly it's mine. I don't go into other people's bodies. Why not? I flickered. Well, it's against the rules. What rules? I don't know. It doesn't, the percept is you don't do it. I don't think I could if I wanted to. You do a lot of turning and twisting when you come out. You know, I plied. I don't have a percept from outside watching me in action. We do much the same back in KT95 in a game we play. Get us in and out of the system over us. Hey, what are all those girls doing in that big hut over there? I vibrated. You didn't go over there, did you? BB smoothed. Just hung around a little. Couldn't get your attention. So I had to do something. Tossed a couple of roads to one or two. They were glad to get them. What they doing? They are trying to break the survival habit and to relearn what they forgot. It's a school. I don't get any percept you need to a school to do that. I turned. You need the rest of your one easy lesson. I reached and stretched, headed for the lowest of the cycling rings, staying just out of phase with the physical. This was the part that was the rough stuff, but I was sure we would be ignored and unmolested if we stayed just on the upper fringes. I didn't look forward to it. For purposes of comparison, I used the same 42nd Street ident in New York. It was a short run, and we came out 50 feet over the street. BB was beside me. He smoothed. Back here again? No difference except a big mass more of humans. Focus on the ones that you perceive best. BB opened, and evidently the change in the superimposed mass was apparent to him. The man rushing out from the curb to flag a taxi and running through it, and stopping, bewildered as car after car passed through the space he seemed to occupy. The thin young male in long hair who looked to be more than 18, no more than 18, trying to get the attention of the young group leaning against a parked car, asking for a hit from the joint, being passed around but unable to get their attention because they can't see or hear him. The burly policeman in full uniform swinging his nightstick. strolling along the storefronts, totally unaware that he is unobserved.
So what is happening? This is a description of Focus 23, where people have died and they don't know that they have died. So they are attempting to follow the same routine that they were following while they were in this 3D reality that we call the Earth life system.
The smartly dressed woman of indeterminate age trying to find a coin for a newspaper in her purse as she unknowingly walks through the side of a nearby building. The older man trying to buy the offerings of two young hookers standing by a doorway leading upstairs, angry because they don't know he exists, watches as a physical man steps up, waves a double soba in one girl's face as she turns and leads him up the stairs, the first man following. The old woman walking slowly along the street, oblivious to everything around her, reaching down occasionally to the sidewalk and attempting to pick up a half smoked cigarette snipe, but her hand passes through it. The dark skinned man standing defiantly in the middle of the passing crowds, intense hate on his face and knife in hand, slashing through each passerby without realizing he is damaging or hurting no one. The unshaven old man at the open bar across the street, trying to pick up and toss down every drink set in front of a customer, then climbing on a customer's back to try and get the taste and effect of the drink as the customer feels it, unnoticed and to no avail.
So
I
what is
turn,
happening? These people are wanting stuff. They're wanting to communicate. They're wanting to consume things. They're wanting to do things. But the regular 3D people are not able to conceive or perceive them, right? So they are getting more and more agitated and more annoyed.
I turn to BB. Had enough? He flickered strongly. What's the matter with them? They've died physically and they don't know it. All they remember is human physical existence and they're trying to hang on. That's all they got. They think.
So now, so just see over here how important it is to actually know what will happen after we transit. If you don't know, then there's a big probability that you'll get stuck with like these people. They'll just keep doing the same thing and they won't know what the hell they are doing.
Can't you give them a different percept? I smoothed. If you mean me, I have to help when I get into that run. There are others who make a career of it. BB blanked. Career? That's all they do, try to get the attention of such humans. Would you like to get a percept of an extreme distortion of the survival drive? He flickered. Sure, lead on.
So there are others who make a career of it. So this is a very old shamanic principle where you retrieve the souls and you transcend them, right? Lifeline program is a beautiful program in which we do the same thing, and it's actually a service because people who are stuck and they can't go anywhere, it's a service to release them so that they can move forward in their evolutionary process.
I knew he was shaken, but I had to push him all the way. Then I could be positive he would appreciate the outer rings. I reached, homed on ident, sexual pile, and stretched. After a short movement, we stopped. We were less than 10 feet away. Beside me, BB focused, blanked, and closed. I waited, and he finally opened again slightly. I focused away from the pile of writhing human forms and half closed. It was about all I could take. BB vibrated weakly. What happened to them?
Shimangla, your mic is giving a feedback. So did you change something just now?
No,
Okay, so then just speak a little from a little further away, maybe.
they've died physically and they at least know they're different. not responsible, they think. So they're letting it all hang out. But what are they doing like that? They have no interest but reproducing. Not to make copies, but just the act of reproducing. That's all they know and all they care about. They keep trying but get no satisfaction because it takes a physical body the way they know it, and they don't have any.
So that pile of human beings, they're constantly just indulging in the sexual act, not really getting satisfied, and just keeping on repeating that. In one of the chapters in Ahead, Robert Monroe actually tried to pull a fellow out of that pile of human beings, but he just crawled back into the entire pile. So there's not so much that you can do to help them because they're totally focused in the sexual act.
Bibi attempted to focus again and turned away. Let's get out of here. I wanted his rote to be absolutely real. Convinced? Yay, yay, let's go. I reached and stretched outward, positive he was close behind me. Moved slowly outward, we passed through the density of still grey forms who were neither here nor there, barely conscious and waiting for something to happen. And it would, all positive. Very little M band noise there. I eased us to a stop in the center of the next innermost ring. There were forms all around us, very human. Each was aware and active in a tight circle that included only their own route. Bibi nudged me. Why are you stopping here? Noise is still heavy. I opened. There's a big difference. They know they no longer have physical bodies, but not much more. Focus in on a couple and you'll get a percept. I Bibi returned and faced a woman who seemed to be walking in slow motion in one place. She appeared middle aged, overweight, tears running down her face. I'm sorry. Mommy didn't mean to leave you, baby doll, but she just couldn't help it. But I'm coming back. I'm coming back to help you just as soon as I can. I'm coming back somehow.
So this person had died and she left her baby behind. So now she's going into that cycle rigmarole. She's constantly talking to her baby and telling her, I'm coming back, I'm coming back.
I indicated a man who looked to be in his 60s, pacing back and forth, rapidly pounding his fist in the palm of his other hand. Bibi refocused. Damn, damn, damn. Just when I had all set up to go out and enjoy myself. Damn. Now she'll spend it all on clothes and trips everywhere, and I'm left out. Got to get back somehow. Got to get what's coming to me. Damn, damn.
So now again, this man, he has died and he's getting frustrated that his wife or his girlfriend is going to use all the money and blow it up and he can't use it.
This
Okay,
is
so
so
now,
funny.
yeah, so this is actually what happens, right?
Yeah.
Like now today, Bhootnath wala movie, he got so attached to the house that he wouldn't let anyone enter the house only till he made friends with that young boy. So this is actually what gets happening to us. We get stuck.
A thin young girl in blue jeans attracted our attention. Hands on her hips, she was looking around defiantly. Shit, is that all there is to dying? I don't see any gods or angels. I knew it, shit.
So now, so there is a belief system, right? That when you die, you'll see gods and angels. Now that really doesn't happen. So again, we have to transcend these belief systems. And the idea to transcend the belief system is to actually go and experience it, which is what the beauty of the Monroe process is. It allows us to experience these expanded states while being in this 3D environment. So when the transition time comes, we really know what needs to be done. We are not like these people who get stuck, they don't know what's happening and all that stuff.
We moved carefully around the various animate human forms, singled out another man of middle age, grey haired, standing and looking at the haze, arms folded. Well, I did the best I could, left them money in the bank, house in good shape, insurance will take care of their mortgage. Right front tire on the station wagon needs replacing. Hope Ben will take care of the contract on the Holmes deal. Company is going to miss me. Would have enjoyed one more dinner at Luigi's. Never got seafood like that again. Bibi swung to me. He's closed up tight. We can't reach him. I replied. Go ahead and try. He moved directly in front of the man, tossing small rots at the man's face. Each time the man waved his hand as if he were brushing a persistent fly off his nose. Other than that, there was no response. Bibi finally gave up and followed as I turned and moved outward through the haze of the ring. It was hard for me to accept now that I had once been as deeply focused in HTSI, but I was sure it was so. If my rote of it was there, it was deeply covered over. I like to think I released it, of course.
So human time space interval.
One more stop before we reach the null point should do it. When the haze began to lessen somewhat, I came to a stop. A woman was standing amid what seemed to be jagged rock outcrop. She was aware of us immediately and began to scream. Bibi started to back away. The woman came at us, waving her arms. You stay away from me, you spawn of the devil. I was a sinner, but I didn't sin any more than everyone else. I tell you, you can't take me to hell because I am a good woman. You go after those harlots down on Front Street.
So again, this person has died, and again in her belief system, she believes that she will go to hell. So anyone who is approaching her in that expanded state, she thinks is going to take her to hell. So naturally, she starts getting annoyed and angry and fighting.
She stopped abruptly, sank to her knees, head bowed, sobbing. Please don't take me to hell. Please. I just want to be with my daughter. She's around here somewhere. She was so good. She couldn't help dying before me. I know she didn't go to hell. Please, please. I did what I could. Your daughter was good. If you just rest quietly, she will come and find you. Think of her. Sit quietly and think of her, and she will find you. What was her name? The woman sobbing eased, but her head remained bowed, and she was unable to think clearly. I did get a percept. Claire will find you very soon. The woman slowly raised her head, eyes open in wonder as I turned and led Bibi further outward through the haze. Bibi came beside me. You sure swung that one, Ram, I replied. Beginner's luck. He blanked. What? More human stuff. Come on. Sometimes my navigation wasn't as good as I would like it to be. We finally broke through the haze into a cleared area. This was my intended stopping point. To the right, the surf of a white capped blue ocean crashed regularly against a rocky shore. Overhead, the sky was a lighter blue with no clouds. In front of us was a simple log cabin, and behind the cabin rose a forested mountain. It could be either Maine or California, but it wasn't. It wasn't anything.
So,
Hey,
so over here, when you say, he says very clearly here, your daughter was good. If you just rest quietly, she will come and find you. So again, in those expanded states, the moment we think of someone, that person, either we reach in front of that person or that person comes to Us.
Hey, why are we stopping? Bibi cut in. I didn't, Charlie, a friend of mine, try it. He did, and I knew what was happening. All I was perceiving suddenly came into Bibi: the ocean, the shore, cabin, sky, and mountain. He flickered. We back on your earth? I smoothed. No, Charlie made it. Bibi black. Charlie made it. He likes to be reminded of his favorite physical place, so he made a copy.
So
You
now,
can
what is happening here? Now, Charlie is a friend of Robert Monroe who had passed on, right? Now, in Focus 27, you can actually make that space that you want for yourself. And you can invite people there. And many of the workshop participants, and especially the Lifeline participants, have actually gone and made a space for themselves in that expanded state of Focus 27. So, this is a space that Charlie has made, and Robert Monroe has bought BB to visit that particular space.
he can do that. It's like a rote almost. The door of the cabin opened and Charlie came out. He was his usual short, round bodied, round faced self and wearing his usual plaid shirt. His hair was dark and straight, this time instead of his usual tight blonde curls. He approached and we shook hands. Well, Robert, I see you got out again. Hi, Charlie. What happened to your hair? Charlie flickered. I got a new friend. She likes it straight and brown, so I changed it. She's in the cabin. Want to meet her? We just stopped by for a minute. Next time, maybe. He looked in Bibi's direction. You got somebody with you? I smoothed. Yay, a friend. He started intently. I can just barely see the edges of something. Say hello to Bibi. Charlie looked dubious. I can't see you, but hello, Bibi. Welcome to Fantasyland. Bibi flickered. Hello, Charlie. Surprise crossed Charlie's face. I heard him, but I can't see him. Bibi rolled a little. I get you fine, Charlie. Charlie turned to me. You taught him the OOB routine. Now you have a traveling companion. That's great. I smoothed. Not exactly, Charlie. You see, you will have to teach him to fine tune a little better, Robert. I can't get even a clear outline. Just something like heat distortion on the desert. You still hear me, Bibi?
So now what is happening? Now Charlie is operating at a certain frequency level, right? Robert Monroe is close to that frequency level, but BB is beyond that frequency level. So because of that, Charlie cannot perceive BB.
Bibi must have pulled a percept from Charlie, who was wide open. Loud and clear, Charlie. Zero level plus or minus 3 dB. Charlie looked pleased. That's my language, Bibi. At least I hear you. Say, how do you like what I've done here? Took some doing to get the ocean waves to hit the rocks accurately, I tell you. Hey, Robert, you like sunsets. Watch this one. We turned and looked out over the ocean. Slowly, the light blue sky darkened and flares of red, orange, and yellow melded together on the horizon. Layers of clouds appeared, which added perspective and texture to the scene. The edges of the clouds took on rose and mauve hues. It reminded me of Oahu in Hawaii. Charlie turned to me. How's that for a first draft? I explained to Bibi. Charlie was an electronics engineer in his last physical life. I thought I was pretty good, Charlie added. That was nothing compared to what you can do here. What's your field, BB? You work with Robert? BB flickered. I'm from KT95. Charlie looked puzzled. KT95? New one on me. Where's the company located? I decided to give it to him straight. He's not from Earth, Charlie. He isn't even human. He looked taken aback, but only for a moment. Now, come on. You're not going to start that kind of talk again. I laughed. He's for real, Charlie. He turned to where he perceived BB stood. Robert has been feeding me all these wild ideas about other worlds, energy fields we know nothing about, that type of thing. I can go along with him as to possible intelligent life on other planets, somewhere beyond our solar system. But that's not what he means. Human life, even operating the way I am now, I can handle that too. So he got you to help him pull a fast one on Charlie. You put yourself a little out of sync to make yourself look hazy. And whammo, Robert has himself a super being. BB flickered. Now, Charlie, I didn't. Okay, I can go along with a gag as good as the next one. He chuckled. Where did you say you're from? KT95, Charlie, BB smooth, is different from here. Sure, I bet it is. He laughed. What do you do there? I mean, you personally. I play games. What kind of games? They're hard to explain, but I can show you one. Charlie smiled. Okay, show me. I'm a Missouri boy. I cut in. I don't think you should, BB. We don't have enough time. Charlie laughed hard. Had to bail him out, Robert? You should have coached him more, I suppose. BB, you've come to Earth to save us humans from ourselves. Stop the nukes from going off or some such thing. BB blanked. No, no. We were on this tour of TSI and just visiting that it. That's all then. Just where is this KT95 you say you come from? BB flickered. Just pull a couple of long skips that way. Charlie turned to me, grinning. Nice try, Robert. I appreciate all the trouble you and BB took to dream it up. Bring me a little hard data and I'll believe you. I smiled. I'll keep trying. We have to leave now. Thanks for your hospitality. I liked your sunset. Charlie and I shook hands and he turned to BB. Come back and visit, BB. You don't have to wait for Robert to bring you. BB vibrated. I don't. Come whenever you feel like it. Next time you won't have to retune. Then I can see you better. By the way, I put in, you decided yet about your next physical life? He shrugged. I'm still thinking about it. I'm in no hurry. That's good. Be selective next time. That I will. I smoothed. Take care, Charlie. We lifted outward and soon we were back in the haze. And I could tell from the change in texture when we passed the null point. From here on out, things would change rapidly. The question was where to drop in next. BB was tight beside me, and I knew he was trying to sort out the solid shots of rote he was receiving. I tried to get a percept of the impact on him, but he was closed too tightly. But I didn't really need a percept. Charlie had impressed him. Here was another human being, albeit without a physical body for the moment, that he could relate to easily. After the mess in the lower rings, here was a Charlie who seemed perfectly normal, who knew how to do things, play, in ways that were new and exciting to BB, and being who had a sense of humor, much as he did. Only one small problem. Charlie wouldn't believe BB existed if he had the real root.
So again, it boils down to belief systems, right? Many times what we are experiencing because we have no information and knowledge about it, we refuse to accept it. That's why knowledge and experience has to go hand in hand. There is no other way.
I decided we were deep enough into the outer ring so that an ident I pulled to an easy stop. The haze was less dense and the shape of buildings, irregularly spaced, began to take form, each a suitable distance from another, each different in design, either extremely or slightly. Many seemed to be constructed of stone, most were equipped with spires, steeples, domes, or towers in various configurations. Some had elaborate stained glass circular windows. We moved down near the front of the nearest building. As we did, a woman emerged from the front door and descended the wide steps. When she reached the last step, she looked up and stopped short. There was no fear in her eyes, just uncertainty. I decided to set her straight. We don't bite, she responded immediately. I didn't expect you to. I was trying to decide where to refer you. We have so many committees. You don't act like a newcomer. I smiled. We're just visiting. Our minister says there is no such person as a visitor here. She replied confidently. You wouldn't have found us if you didn't have our faith. It's really all right to be a newcomer. I'll take you to Thelma. She's in charge of the welcoming committee. I smiled. No thanks, just the same. We're only passing through. She looked puzzled. You keep saying using we. Do you think you're more than one person? We have a class on multiple personalities that you can attend. Dr. Frankie conducts it.
So
BB
now,
comes.
so now what is happening? Now she is telling her that you can have many experiences and many classes are going on in this expanded state, right? So now this could be either in focus 24, 25, 26, or in focus 27, where these classrooms go on, you're in that same structure. In focus 24, 25, 26, you are in that belief system territory. In 27, you have a lot more freedom. You can create your own space. Plus, there are all these learning centers and healing centers, etc., where you can go and actually rejuvenate yourself.
BB cut in. Why can't she perceive me, Ram? Charlie did. She smiled at me. What did you? Oh, your name is Percy. Ram, Charles? She smiled at me. Not exactly, I answered. It was interesting. She was mixing BB's radiation with mine to fit her percept. Isn't it wonderful to know, really know you have everlasting life? She stretched her arms outward from her side. Oh, I remember so well how I felt when I died and they brought me here, how I harbored little secret doubts, and I do understand how you feel. Sunday school and the redoctrination classes will clear those up for you. Don't worry, it's just unusual that you arrived here on your own.
So basically, she thinks that BB has arrived on his own. He's just died. And then she's telling him that you'll attend the classes and things will be put right for you.
I had to ask it for BB's sake. He was focused very intently on what was taking place. Then, this isn't heaven? This isn't where God is? She laughed lightly. That's exactly what I asked when I was a newcomer. Don't be disappointed. We are only at the gates of heaven. Our minister, Dr. Fortune, preaches sermons about it every Sunday. I must confess they're quite different from the ones Reverend Wilson used to preach back when I was living physically in Lexington. Are you going back? She frowned. You mean back into physical life? I smoothed. I guess that's what I mean. She was thoughtful for a moment. I don't know. Dr. Fortune has sermons about it. He says when you leave here, you can go back again or you can go somewhere else. BB cut in. You get that, Ram? This fortune girl found himself a solid percept. I turned to BB. That's right. The woman was staring at me. You mumble your words, don't you? Yes, I think Dr. Fortune's perception is right. But he's a man, not a girl. I persisted. Then people do leave here. She smiled. Oh, yes, we lose several of our congregation every Sunday. Dr. Fortune says it's all right.
So again, they are in a belief system territory. They are going to church, and naturally, those that awaken, they will leave that place, right? So they leave it, and they're not really bothered about if someone disappears.
What happens to them? Do you know? They get up after service and walk out the front door ahead of everyone else. After that, we don't see them again. They're gone when the rest of us leave. It's a ritual our church conducts here. I took it as far as I could. Do they finally go to heaven? She was very open and clear. Most of our congregation thinks so. Dr. Fortune is ambivalent about it. At the close of each service, he issues something like the call that the Reverend Wilson did back in physical life. People get up, walk down to the front of the church, and there he says something to them the rest of us can't hear. Then we sing a hymn and they march out. What do you think yourself think? Where are they going? She hesitated. I don't know. Things are so different here from what I expected, and I've learned so much. I just haven't made up my mind. Then she laughed. But you're asking me questions. The welcoming committee are the people you need. I'll take you over to. Wait a minute. Where are you going? I have to leave now. I called out to her as we moved upward. See you in heaven, I hope. She stood and gazed in wonderment as we moved out, and I finally lost her in the haze. I've often been curious as to her reporting of our visit. If she did, we moved slowly as I tried to plan a suitable stop for the last part of the lesson. I was glossing and skipping over so much that I was unsure as to the value of the entire trip. This was no job for a neophyte, and I certainly was just that when it came to quick, easy lessons. I was still too human myself. BB gave me the answer when he pushed at me. Hey Ram, we going to heaven now? I rolled a little, then smoothed. Not yet. I have the percept I couldn't if I wanted to. Then how about where there are humans who will toss a few roads with me, not you? This is supposed to be my lesson, and all I do is hang around. You know what I mean. Let's go back to Charlie. I didn't reply, but the percept flared brightly, and I began moving rapidly. I was positive where our last visit should take place. I led us to the very outer fringes of the outermost ring, where the haze was quite thin. The rim had to glow to it as we approached, and we entered the glow, broke down into soft individual light sources. Those who resided here. These were the teachers, the helpers, and the so called guides of the inner rings, all on temporary but dedicated duty. I had one ident in particular, and I in on it, with BB following. It was only moments later that we eased to a stop. One from broke away from a group and approached us. It was only slightly humanoid in shape, glowing softly. I opened. I took you at your word, Bill. We've come visiting. The form smoothed. We were expecting you, Bob, and this is your friend from KT95. Welcome, BB. BB bickered. Ah, hello. It was no surprise that Bill was aware of BB and the whole sequence of events. I sometimes get the dim percept that my entire adventure, including this one, had been neatly planned from the beginning. Thus, I let Bill and BB get it together, and they did.
So,
BB began it.
so in actual fact, everything is really planned, right? But we have the free will to shift it. And when we shift it, we go out of sync. So the idea is to be able to actually understand what we need to do all the time.
BB began it. You're human like Ram here? BB rolled a little. I have a solid mass of human root, BB. I've been through the mill, as it were. But at this point, I don't have a physical body as Bob does. You want a road from me? What I am and that stuff? That's not necessary. I have a fine percept of you, your friend AA and KT95. What I would like is your percept of the human experience with your one easy lesson. BB flickered. It's not too solid. You sure you want it? Bill smoothed, just as it is. Yeah, well, it's the wildest bunch of games inside of games, with rules on top of rules that get so mixed up you don't have any percept at all of which game you're playing. Then they get so busy playing so many games, they forget it is a game, the whole thing, even why they're playing it and how they got in it to start.
So life is a game. But if you don't have clarity of thought, you'll get caught up in the game and you won't know that it's a game. Very beautifully put.
That is very well put, BB. Why, I could take the road I got, just what I got, the real road, go back to KT95 and feed it out one after another, each part as a game, and keep those curls back there skipping so fast they would spin out. I'm sure you could. BB flickered. But there's some missing parts, and the game isn't any game without it. Bill was very smooth, such as how do they keep score? Who does the keeping? Good questions. BB vibrated. Where's the fun? Why play a game if you don't have fun playing it? All those humans in there, I didn't get a percept of just one having fun. Bill plied. They do part of the time, and some, but not many, most of the time, and very few all the time. But they're hard to find. Your broad percept missed these fine edges. BB flickered. There's one other thing. Yes, this other part that messes up with the M band so badly. The scratchy stuff. Ram called it emotion. I don't have the least percept of that. He puts it, I have to be human. Emotion is the points, the score. BB blanked, and I waited for Bill to lay this one out. I would like to know too. Bill went on. Emotion it is what makes the game so wild, but it is the game, the one game in which all other games are played. The others feed score to the big game in the form of emotional energy. The big game is to control and develop this emotional energy to its most effective condition, which is vaguely set by us humans as love until we graduate. The more we score, the more fun it becomes. Most of us here, where you are now, we spend our energy going in to help other humans, however and wherever we can, to improve their score and so have more fun.
So basically, the game is to transcend to love.
BB turned inward and closed. Finally, he opened again. Bill? Yes, BB. BB flickered. I don't have any percept of this emotion and love energy stuff. Not a single skim. Bill vibrated gently. Of course you do. BB blanked. I do? Why are you here now? Why did you take the trouble to come back from KT95? Why have you been hanging around? Why did you want to go through this one easy lesson with Bob? Why not just go back to KT95 and play some games? Bibi blanked completely, then slowly turned inward and closed tightly. There wasn't the slightest radiation or movement in him that I could perceive. Bill reached out gently, but Bibi gave no response. I had never been present when anything remotely like this had happened to anyone non physical, except those in the stunned out ring right after physical death, and I hadn't ever watched the start of the condition in that case. I began to vibrate. Bill opened gently. You'd better go back now. We'll take care of him. I vibrated more. Will he be all right? It's a big growth he's absorbing. The fact that he's never been human makes it different. He'll be fine. I began to think that I should never have taken BB on the tour. When Bill cut in, Bob, I was the one who gave him the rote that put him down. He's in the equivalent of what we used to call a shock. Head back now. Your energy is weakening. We will take good care of BB. He will recover. I turned reluctantly, did a half roll, and dove down, following the ident of my physical body. I was relaxed and sure because there was no better help for BB than Bill and his friends, except perhaps the insects, and the line between the two was very, very thin. I picked up the second and re entered the physical without incident. Everything was calm and normal, except that I forgot to check the clock. I kept thinking about the thin line in the weeks and months that followed.
So very nice, no? Explains the concepts very well. Anyone, anything